The people who fall short of their weight loss goals usually share one common trait. They don't have a good relationship with food and themselves. Because it's not like you're incapable of losing weight. The information is out there. That's what my entire channel is all about. But if you don't fix your relationship with food and most importantly, yourself, or worse, you're not even aware that this is happening, then that's when people fall in this negative feedback loop when they're having a bad day. And that's when the all too familiar self-sabotage failure mechanism comes into play. I know this firsthand because this was something I struggled with for the longest time. And it still comes up every once in a while, but I have a much better relationship with food these days that I'm usually able to recover quickly when it happens. And I'm gonna teach you how to make that shift in this video. These are the exact same tips that I give to all my students, and they've all got to see some amazing results. So you know it works. Before we get started, give this video a like, subscribe to my channel, and hit the bell to get notified every time I post a new video every week. One of the biggest things to consider when you're trying to improve your relationship with food is how do you look at food? How do you view it? And most importantly, what feelings do you associate with it? Because for the longest time, when I had no idea what I was doing, I would just severely limit my food. I was scared of food because I thought I was gonna get fat every time I ate something, which meant that I always looked at the amount of calories of whatever food I was about to eat. I always just attached a number to it, and that's when a lot of people, myself included, usually tend to go for highly processed, low calorie, and low fat versions of foods. So you're eating fake food, then you start drinking diet soda, and then you also start using artificial sweeteners because you're all trying to fit it in your macros. That's just not a sustainable, let alone healthy way of eating. So that's what we're gonna start with. We're gonna start with not worrying so much about calories. We're just gonna make sure that we're sticking with real food so we can properly nourish our body. For example, people usually shy away from fat, but fat is essential to every cellular function in your body. Your brain is made mostly from fat. It plays a key role when it comes to hormone balance. It activates CCK, for example, which is one of your key satiety hormones. And it's delicious. Like, I remember as a kid being told not to eat pork skin or shying away from fatty cuts of steak, even though it was the best tasting part. We also eat white meat instead of dark meat when it comes to chicken, even though dark meat is juicier and it tastes better, but we shy away from it because of the fat. If you have some carbs on your plate, like sweet potatoes, it'll help you recover from your most recent workout and help refuel your muscle glycogen stores. If you've got protein, that's important because it's the building block of life. It's what your body uses to rebuild your muscles and make them stronger. If you don't get enough protein in your diet, that's when people atrophy and they start to lose their hair. You don't ever want that, but you see this in a lot of people who just severely cut their calories, as well as vegans and vegetarians, especially if they don't supplement properly. And I emphasize having a lot of lean muscle mass in a lot of my videos because it's extremely important when it comes to just having good overall quality of life. That's why exercise to me is non-negotiable, and this gets magnified as you age because having a lot of lean muscle mass is a very strong indicator of lifespan. And truth be told, I didn't eat a lot of vegetables even into my early 20s, but they're so important when it comes to nourishing your body with phytonutrients. They also play a key role when it comes to satiety because vegetables usually contain fiber, which activates that stretch mechanism in your stomach. They also tend to be extremely low in calories, but who's counting? So before you eat, just take a look at your plate to see what it's gonna do for you. If you're eating cereal or toast for breakfast and then you chase it with a glass of orange juice, that's not really ideal because you're mostly eating refined carbs and sugar. There's no protein or fats in those foods. Whereas if you eat bacon and eggs, that's infinitely better for you. That's why I always tell people to learn how to read labels. Why? Well, here's an example. Those are the ingredients of chicken nuggets. I don't even want to count how many ingredients are in there. On the other hand, if you pan fry a piece of chicken thigh, for example, you know that there's only one ingredient there: chicken. Next, let's talk about when you do have these processed foods and you're consciously putting in your body. This is your quote-unquote cheat meal. When you go for ice cream, for example, and I love going for ice cream dates because who doesn't like ice cream? Whenever you have these foods, as long as it's an intentional and occasional thing, don't punish yourself for it. It's extremely important that when you're working on having a good relationship with food, you don't make yourself feel bad or punish yourself whenever you have a treat. And on the other side of that is you don't use food as a reward because you're not a dog. Don't reward yourself with food. Because as soon as you start punishing yourself whenever you have a cheat meal, or you reward yourself with certain foods for doing something, you start having negative associations with these foods. And that in itself will develop in you having a bad relationship with it. The key here is to be mindful. Just be aware when you catch yourself thinking, oh, I just ate nachos, so now I have to run 5K to burn off those calories. Or today's leg day and I just ran a 5K, it's time to reward myself with a donut. Don't fall for the IFTT scenario, which stands for if this, than that. You should go for a run to improve your cardiovascular health. You should lift weights to build muscle. You should eat pizza because it's your brother's birthday. You should go for ice cream because you planned for it. I mean, don't do it every day, obviously. I mean, that makes no sense. Just don't use exercise or food as a reward or punishment. Again, you're not a dog. The next point that I want to talk about is just be aware when you start comparing yourself to other people. Social media is literally poison when it comes to this. This is when you start to see other people post their meals and then they're flexing and then they'll say, "What's your excuse?" and all that garbage. The major problem with that is you only see a glimpse, like a moment in time. You only see a tiny little window instead of what's actually going on that day. You don't know if they're starving themselves for the rest of the day. You don't know if they ate whatever meal they posted on social media and then they chased it with a tub of Ben and Jerry's afterwards. You just don't know what people do behind the scenes. Also, we're in an interesting time right now where we're always being bombarded with two opposing sides. One of them is to just go on a calorie deficit because it's all about the calories, and the other side is to just eat intuitively, say no to dieting. Dieting is the enemy, just listen to your intuition. Don't deprive yourself, neither of which is really effective in the long run. Because again, when you're on the calorie counting side, then you just start seeing food as a number, which again creates this unhealthy relationship where you're just eating fake foods and you're not factoring in satiety. And the other side is intuitive eating and just listening to your body and not dieting. The problem with that is if your intuition is telling you to just eat Twinkies and Pop-Tarts and polish it off with a tub of ice cream because you're just having a bad day, you probably shouldn't listen to it. Listen, I'm all for self-love, but that's not self-love, that's self-indulgence. And oftentimes, the truth is usually somewhere in between. Yes, calories matter, but hormones are more important. You need to factor in your hormones and how your body responds physiologically instead of just counting calories, because if it was just all about the calories, then Diet Coke and artificial sweeteners would be considered a health food because it contains 0 calories. If you just side with intuitive eating and not care about dieting, well then that's when you usually just see people go into the seafood diet. They see food, they eat it because their intuition is telling them to do so. Hashtag self-love. That's not self-love. Again, that's not optimal for your health. That can start messing up with your relationship with food in a really bad way, because now you start equating listening to your body as a form of self-love, even when it's telling you to just eat crappy food to make yourself feel better. I mean, there's no science behind that. And again, people just use that as an excuse to self-indulge, which leads me to my next point. This is when tracking your food and your macros can be such a beneficial tool, especially if you're new, because most people have no idea what they're actually putting in their bodies, especially if you're someone who just grazes on food all day. You have little nibbles here and there. That adds up real fast. Tracking your macros is also great if you want to hit a specific macro ratio. Like if you want to go low carb, for example, which I'm a big fan of because it's the best way for you to become metabolically flexible. And being metabolically flexible is when your body is able to tap into your almost unlimited fat stores and burn it for energy in between meals. And if you want a proven plan on how to become metabolically flexible, then you should check out the link somewhere at the top here. Tracking your macros is also an extremely effective way to make sure that your body is getting exactly what it needs, especially when it comes to protein. If you're a chronic undereater, for example, then tracking your macros can be extremely beneficial. Again, this also works if you're on the opposite side and you like to snack all day. You might be mortified when you find out how much food you're actually eating when you add up all of those little snacks that you love to have throughout the day. It's a great way to keep you accountable, which brings me to my next point. So when you have these little nibbles, you're usually not hungry, you're just bored. If you had a proper breakfast or lunch or dinner, for example, and you got enough fat and protein, there is absolutely no reason for you to snack 2 to 3 hours later, because there is zero science behind snacking other than the fact that you're just bored and you're trying to distract yourself. And kids inherently know this, by the way. If a baby or a toddler isn't hungry, good luck getting them to eat. But we teach them the opposite as they get older. We introduce snacking, which is one of the worst self-sabotaging habits if you're trying to lose weight. My point here is that you should not attach food as an answer to boredom. I mean, I love eating, I really do. But there is so much more to life than using food as a way to combat boredom. Fun fact, the best exercise for weight loss is 5 sets of stop eating when you're bored. Which brings me to my next point. Health and fitness is not black or white. It's not all or nothing. Like, it doesn't make you a bad person if you eat a donut after your workout. It doesn't make you a bad person if you eat pizza. You don't just shift from a healthy to an unhealthy person with just one meal. But if you continually do it and it becomes a new habit, then that changes things. You have to play the long game here. In your lifetime, you're gonna be eating thousands of meals. So one bad meal won't make you fat. It won't ruin everything. It doesn't work like that. The danger doesn't lie in that one bad meal or cheat meal or whatever you want to call it. It's just food. It's only a little bit more processed than your usual food. That's not the problem. The real problem starts when you think you've just ruined everything and you start to feel bad, because this is when people start to go, well, I already feel bad. I might as well everything in the house to see how far I can take this. You need to stop that, okay? Just stop. That is honestly one of the most detrimental ways to look at food. That's one of the key things that I want you to take away from this video, because the first mistake is never the problem. It's when it opens the floodgates and you just start eating everything. Because if you follow that one mistake with another, then that is the start of a new habit. So it's important to acknowledge that it happened and just move on with your life. You need to go back to your healthy routine as soon as possible. And this is such a struggle for a lot of people. We want to dwell on this one mistake. I know this because I struggled with it for the longest time. But these days, I almost never feel good whenever I eat junk. I even get mild anxiety the next day because my body's freaking out with what I just put in it. But I know that this feeling is just temporary, and the best remedy is to just forget about it. Get over it and start nourishing your body with the highest quality food again. To me, that's one of the best forms of self-love. And I'm super aware that I'm making this sound a lot easier than it sounds. Again, this was something that I struggled with for the longest time, but I also didn't know any better. I didn't know that it was honestly that simple. So if I could go back in time, I would totally get my former self to watch this video. And I would just tell him, dude, it's all good. Just chill. The sooner you can cut that negativity cord, the better. But you have to be aware that it's happening first and foremost. That's honestly step number one here. Because our thoughts and feelings around food is so deeply ingrained in us that it can take months or even years of practicing mindfulness to shift that paradigm, to shift that story in your head that you don't really identify with anymore. For example, my family didn't have a lot of money growing up. So I had a lot of these preconceived notions and beliefs about money that I didn't even know was there for the longest time. It wasn't until I became aware of it and actually put in the work, and I still continue to put in the work, when things really started to change. It's the same thing with food. Because we didn't have a lot of money, I saw food as a reward. And I carried that with me for the longest time. But now I have a better understanding of it. The funny thing is, I still eat the same food. I just see it differently. It's all about your perspective. I'm more aware of it, and now I can make an educated decision because of it. And even when I have moments, and I still do, I'm not perfect. The next day, when I journal, I just remind myself that I love myself, that I deserve to have the best body. And to have the best body, it starts by nourishing it properly and giving it what it needs to be healthy. You're literally rewiring your brain when you do this. So be patient. Don't expect it to happen overnight. Don't get frustrated if you have setbacks along the way. I mean, it's actually part of it. Just try and try again. As long as you're making progress, no matter how small it is, that's all that matters. And be nice to yourself. This process is gonna be so much easier if you speak kindly to yourself. If you've always had a bad relationship with food and yourself, you're gonna be meeting parts of yourself that you've never met before when you make this shift. So talk to yourself as if you're talking to a child who's just learning how to walk. You wouldn't yell at them if they mess up, right? You would just encourage them to try again. So that's what I want you to do, and it works like a charm. The next question then becomes, how are you actually supposed to eat if you want to lose weight? Because here's the thing. 80% of your body composition is determined by your diet. You can't just freestyle this part. Do you have a proven plan that you can follow? To help you with that, I want to give you a free copy of my Lean Body Blueprint. This is how I melted all the fat around my stomach without depriving myself of my favorite foods or wasting hours at the gym. It's a simple 4-step process specifically designed for busy professionals, and it's the exact same blueprint that I teach to all my private coaching clients, and they've all gone to see some amazing results. If you want to be the next success story, then download your free copy of the Lean Body Blueprint right now. There's going to be a link somewhere at the top here or in the description box. Just click on it, type in your email, and I'll send it to you right away. All right, that's all I've got. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and share it with your friends. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I post a new video every week. And hey, leave a comment below if you have any questions about this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. First, a high five.